Hi, this is Alvin DeLoro, and you're listening to Mike Delivers with Mike Biseglia. You know, I worked with Mike several years ago on the Rome Show over in CBS, and just to be straight, I thought I was introducing Mike Samter's podcast, and, because everybody in CBS at the time was named Mike, so kind of like what he did for our show, I have no idea what Mike's going to deliver. Love you, Mike.
Welcome inside Mike Delivers from his wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. Here's your host, Mike Biseglia.
That's right, this is Mike Delivers, episode number 105, and I'm your host, Mike Biseglia, and I'm coming to you from my wife's 2017 Toyota RAV4. I'm currently outside of the subway in West Orange, New Jersey. I've done 1,239 deliveries, and I have not and will not steal food from anybody. I have a satisfaction rating of 98%. That's pretty damn good as a delivery driver, if you ask me. You can find this podcast on Stitcher, Spotify, TuneIn, Google, and of course on Apple Podcasts. And if you are an Apple Podcast listener, subscribe, 5 stars, and leave a comment for me as well. If you leave that comment, I will sing it at the end of an episode on an odd number episode, which means you will be hearing some singing of comments from me at the very end of this episode. Don't forget to give my guys at the O'Brien Creative Group a look. They're the ones that created my sick-ass looking awesome logo. If you want logo design, website design, head on over to the O'BrienCreativeGroup.com, or you can also just find it in my show notes section, O'Brien Creative Group. Just scroll on down. It's where you see the little bio of what's going on in this podcast. There is a link to that right there. Also a link to my Patreon page, which has been so much fun. It's what Jess and I, my wife and I, do on the side. It's bonus Mike Delivers content. And we've had so much fun with Breakfast Month, as you've been hearing on this podcast, that I actually got to do a IHOP versus a diner in New Jersey blind food taste test, and I got to see which one was better. There's a video of this. If you want to see it, head on over to the Mike Delivers Patreon page. If you have your phone, just type in Patreon to download the app, then type in Mike Delivers. You can also just go to patreon.com online. It's $4 a month. You get a bonus podcast. That podcast comes with a video, blind food taste testings. And now, in addition to that, at the end of every month, we'll have a taste test showdown. This time it's IHOP versus generic diner with pancakes as the battle. Which one did I like more? You can find all that on the Mike Delivers Patreon page. Stories from the road. It's going to be a little different this week. We're going to try something out. We're experimenting here. We'll see how it goes. I think you're going to like it. I've got my friend, colleague, and he is the host of Afternoon Drive in New York City Sports Radio, Evan Roberts. He'll join me on this podcast, and I will bounce some of my stories from the road, and I will get his feelings and opinions on what he heard I said, and we'll have a little fun going back and forth, and we'll get his opinions. He's a very opinionated sports talk show host, which he's great at. So we'll get his opinions on my stories from the road, which will be a lot of fun. Overriding theme here on this episode, and I bring this up with Evan, which you'll hear in a matter of moments, is with this pandemic going on right now, contactless delivery is the thing. It's huge now, and that goes on both ends of the spectrum. It's not just contactless in dropping off the food for the customer, which has its own issues, which you'll hear about. But also now when you get to the restaurant, there's a lot of times that the people at the restaurant aren't even verifying your order or not even asking for your order. I could not believe at a diner this week. I went inside and they didn't even say, what's the name? They just said, take it. I said, I'm here for Uber Eats. Looked at the food. They did not check my app. They did not check the name. They just said, if you see your food, go grab it. So maybe my sickness here, if you're like an evil person, you could if you're a driver, learn the restaurants that don't check, and you could just pick off free meals. Now, of course, you don't know what that food's going to be, and it's basically a gamble of what's in the bag. But if you wanted to, you could steal food. They are not stopping you at all. There is no protocols here. And this is just really bothering me. And I don't think people are actually really doing this where they're going into places and stealing it. But the idea that there's no checks and balances with any of this is quite alarming. I understand you're a diner and there's a lot going on and you're busy, but at the same time, you've got to keep the integrity so at least the right person's getting the food. You know, it's funny, like I've been in places and they're so strict. It's like out of control strict. Like the people check you like you're going in there as a thief. And then you get to the other end of the spectrum where they're not even checking you at all. There needs to be a nice, happy balance, which does happen for the most part in most places. But I just found that to be, quite honestly, alarming. So I could put together a list of places after doing this for a couple months and then send that out and be like, all right, people, if you want a free meal, here's where you go, pretend to be an Uber Eats driver, and you can steal it. I won't do that. I'm just kidding. I'm being a little sarcastic. Also, too, the way the tips now work, and I brought this up on previous episodes here on Uber Eats, is the total amount that you see when you get a request to pick up the said food. In the past, they would say expected total $5. And then after you would do the drop-off, the mystery tip would come in. Now, it's telling you what the expected amount's going to be. It'll say $8.34. That's with the expected tip. And I don't like it at all. I miss the game of trying to find out what the tip was after the fact. And also, there's no incentive to do a good job. If you know that's the tip, you don't need to go out of your way to be with extra service. Who gives a shit? That's what you're getting. Or if you know you're picking up for somebody and they didn't tip you, why the fuck would you go out of your way to be nice to them? You wouldn't. You don't care. You get the food, you get the fuck out of there. So it's also weird too because I took one out of curiosity that didn't have a tip, because I wanted to see the guy, and I saw the guy, and I'm like, this guy's not tipping me, and I'm still going to meet him. I wanted to tell him, hey, just so you know, I can now see beforehand that you didn't tip me, so I know when I'm handing you this food, you schmuck, it's not coming. And I dropped off this guy some McDonald's, and he was only in shorts, had his shirt off, which is fine, except when your belly is hanging over your waist. He's on his cell phone. His big old belly is just flopping in the wind. I had no time to talk to him. I'm like, this asshole wouldn't tip me. He's coming out here strutting off his chest. I just wanted to tell the guy, I know you didn't tip me, and by the way, you nasty. But this is kind of cool. There's more I'm learning about this stuff, though. It's fascinating, right? The game is changing here a little bit with Uber Eats. I'm a little slow to this change, but I'm hoping the more I do this, that the expected tip coming in the long run can make me more money, even though maybe it's not as fun and exciting having the fact beforehand, ooh, what's the tip? Now it's I kind of know what I'm going to get. That excitement isn't there. All right, I'm going to have my combo with Evan as we get to stories from the road. Also coming up, I will reveal which food smelled the most this week in my car. I'll have that information as well here on the Mike Delivers podcast. But let's get to stories from the road with special guest Evan Roberts. All right, it's the Mike Delivers podcast, stories from the road. A little bit different this week. I'm bringing on a friend, I'm bringing on a colleague, and I'm bringing on somebody that's been on this podcast before. That is Evan Roberts. He hosts Afternoon Drive in New York on WFAN, but he is also a big fan of food, and that's why I'm bringing him on here. Evan, are you ready to hear my stories from the road this week?
I am ecstatic. I am humbled. I am honored, and I am ready.
Okay, so the first delivery I want to talk to you about was I picked up an order, and it was actually hot dogs from a hot dog truck, which was just strange to begin with, pulling over to the side of the road, going to a hot dog truck and asking for Uber Eats meals. But besides that, once I picked up the food, there was a note from the person where I was dropping off the food, and he said, please just leave the food on the front porch, and then you can leave. So I drove. It was about a 12-minute drive, a couple of miles. Finally get to the house, and I noticed two young gentlemen sitting on that porch. I want to say probably young 30s. And when I get out of my car, I noticed the gentleman take his hand and slap the other guy in the leg like, hey, watch this. So I get over to the house, And the guy goes, "Who is this for?" And I should not have said the name, but I said the name, and we'll make one up. It's for Frank. And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I know Frank. Frank's a friend of my dad's. You can leave the food with me." So I hand the guy the food, and I say, "I have to take a photo of it, though, okay?" He goes, yeah, that's fine. That must be new. So I take a photo of him with the food, and then I bolt. And this whole time I'm thinking, did this guy steal the food? Do you think he actually gave it to his dad's friend, or he was scamming me and took some free hot dogs?
I would lean towards he's scamming you. I mean, you have a very naive face.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I think people look at you and say, that's a nice guy. And that's a great thing to be a nice guy. But I also think that he probably thought you were very gullible. And the truth is, you're in a tough spot. What the hell are you supposed to say?
I know.
No, I have to give it to Frank. And by the way, it's kind of funny that you picked Frank when you're talking about hot dogs, but whatever.
Yeah, that was pure coincidence.
Plus, you're in a tough spot because there's no right answer. You're supposed to leave it outside anyway. So
Exactly.
I don't think you did anything wrong, but I think there's a very good chance that somebody ended up with the hot dogs from the hot dog truck that didn't order the hot dogs from the hot dog truck.
I know, and it's such a tricky spot too, because at the same time, I don't want then those two guys sitting on the porch to be like, "Oh, you don't think we're good people? You're judging us because I'm out here. You don't trust me." So it's this like weird back and forth, and it's so awkward when that happens. And I'm sure at some point something crazy is going to happen. But man, I wish I had some closure on this. I never will. But
So you have no answer. So you don't even know if it ended up with the right person.
No clue.
I'm going to assume it did, because if it didn't, you probably would have heard about it, because the person would have complained, "Where's my hot dog truck hot dog?" You know?
True, but the weird part, why would he slap the other guy's leg? That's the image I can't get out of my head. Like, he said, "Let's prank this kid." That's me, the kid. Like that, I can't get that slap out of my head.
You can't always assume that's what the slap was. Maybe the slap was, "Hey, buddy, look, our hot dogs are here." Or, "Hey, that was a great chat we just had. Let me touch your leg in a romantic way." Like, you don't know. It could be a million different things.
Okay, so final vote. Did this guy get his hot dogs?
No, I'm going to go with no.
Okay, I'm going to go with no also, just for the because of my anxiety. We'll enhance that.
Did you sleep at night? Were you able to go to bed that night?
I was not, Evan. Stayed up all night thinking about this delivery. So I went into one of these diners, and I'm just curious to get your overall opinion on this. I go into the diner to pick up the order that I need, and there's about 5 to 6 bags just sitting on the counter. And I say, "Hey, excuse me, I'm here from Uber Eats." And the guy goes, "Just take whatever you need. It's right in front of you. If it's there, get it." Never once checked my app, didn't ask for the name. I could just go in there and steal food from this diner. I mean, how do you feel listening to that, knowing that restaurants, and I've seen this in multiple spots, you go to restaurants, they're not even checking anymore on the app. If you figure out the right places, you know where you could go and just steal meals.
I mean, you got to ask yourself something. Are people really going to start saying, "You know what I'm going to do tonight? I'm going to go into random diners. I'm going to look for a bag and I'm going to steal it"? Because you got to ask yourself something. I don't know about you. I'm kind of a picky eater. So even if I, was morally corrupt and wanted to steal other people's foods, what are the odds that what's in that bag is something I'd like anyway? It's a freaking diner. There's only like 3 or 4 things on the menu that I'd want. So, oh, great, I stole something because I'm a morally bankrupt scoundrel, and I end up with some, salad or some steak from a diner. And you can't order a steak from the diner. So, look, I get it's risky, but the odds are you're going to end up with something horrible.
I know it is creepy, but I'm just like, you can go into these restaurants. I've seen it in multiple restaurants, not just diners. They're not checking. I saw this happen in a Subway, the Subway, the sandwich shop, not an actual Subway. Like, "Hey, yeah, you're here. Go ahead and take it." No accountability though. So I'm thinking, like, if you do get a corrupt driver who scams and knows the system, they on their off hours can figure out ways just to get themselves free meals and then play Russian roulette with whatever's in that bag.
Can I ask you a question? I know that, and I'm sure all your listeners know you have a pregnant wife, and she probably has lots of cravings. My wife last night, who's pregnant, had a craving for really, really cheesy pasta at 1:00 in the morning. Is it starting to pop into your head that maybe, even though you are a decent human being, that maybe you are going to start just stealing random bags and give it to your pregnant wife? Is that going through your mind?
It is, Evan. And I just talked to my wife before, and she goes, "I'm craving a chocolate chip cookie." I was like, "You're craving a chocolate chip cookie?" Okay. So maybe I need to go and find the Uber Eats spots in bakeries and then snag some
And
chocolate
you know what
chip
else?
cookies.
And tell yourself something else. If you're doing it for your pregnant wife, is it really illegal? I mean, you got to ask yourself that, if you're doing it for a pregnant woman, then is really taking a cookie that was ordered for somebody else, is it really that immoral? It probably is. It still is. But maybe you can tell that in your brain that it isn't,
Right. So then when you get busted and like somebody shows up, this guy's stealing food. It's for my pregnant wife. She wants a chocolate chip cookie. I'm an Uber Eats driver with a podcast, and it's all part of the material. I swear that's what this is for.
Oh, you'll be free. It'll be no problem.
Okay, we're going back to a Subway. This one was in West Orange, New Jersey. And by the way, Evan, I'll say this to you because I know you're a big Nets fan like me. Anytime I get an order that's in West Orange, New Jersey, I'm always keeping my fingers crossed, like maybe I'll take this to Kyrie Irving or maybe like to a family member there. Has not happened yet. Okay, I'll start with that. Yeah. But I went to a Subway, and it was 2 sandwiches, 2 macadamian cookies. I don't know the exact term for them. So I open the bag and look inside, see the 2 sandwiches, and then I see 2 chocolate chip cookies. So I turn around, head back over to the counter, and I tell the 2 ladies behind the counter, excuse me, these cookies are chocolate chip. It said on the app they're a different type of cookie. And first off, she goes, the cookies are in there. We put them in there. You don't have to ask us. Just purely yelling at me. But I was calm. I was nice. I said, I understand that. Thank you. But it looks like they're 2 different cookies. Let me see the app. She takes the phone, sees the phone, recognizes that she was wrong, makes the quick cookie switch, never apologizes to me, never says sorry, and I go along my way. I did have one of the customers in there say, nice job, nice lookout by you, which did make me feel a little good inside that I made the right decision, even though it really wouldn't benefit anybody. I mean, it doesn't really matter. Like the guy would get screwed and no one would even know. But what do you think of that move by me, being a veteran in there, going into the Subway and making the switch and also being respectful of people that were kind of nasty to me?
I think it shows your compassion. I think it shows your patience. I think it shows why you're a Nets fan to begin with, because I think you need all of those things to be a Net fan. You're a better person than me. I wouldn't want to deal with an angry employee from Subway who's probably worked like 18 hours. They're miserable. They don't want to be there. And the last thing they want to do is some schmuck telling them, please change the cookies, So I think you showed great restraint, and you did something I wouldn't have done. And I don't think most people would have done. They would have just been like, listen, there are 2 cookies in there. I'm getting the hell out of here. Not my problem. Real class and poise on your part.
I know. And there's been sometimes I don't even want to look in the bag because I'm like, I know it's going to be wrong. And then I know that I'm going to have to say something. And I was like, oh, I looked and I was like, oh, of course.
That's the thing, man. See no evil, hear no evil. Like if you don't look, then you never know that the wrong cookie was put. And then technically you did nothing wrong. But I tell you, you take your job very seriously. It's almost like you really want high ratings or something.
It is, but this, Evan, this is a bigger picture for another podcast. This just boils down to some of the problems with the app because people are now pre-tipping you. So if you know you got a pre-tip, it doesn't even matter what's in the bag. You can just go. So from the driver's standpoint of trying to do the best possible job, what does it even matter if you know what money's coming to you beforehand?
Did you have a pre-tip in that situation? Did you already know what your tip was?
Yeah, and it was just a shit tip. I mean, it was just a couple bucks.
And you still did that? And you still did that? Wow.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they can change the tip after, I guess.
Did they? Did they change the tip?
No, they did not change the tip, and they never knew. But for my end, I wanted to go in there and be like, I don't remember the person's name, but hey, Jonah, I just want you to know that I made a switch. They had the incorrect cookies, and I put the right cookies in there. If Jonah then sees that, they might be like, oh, thank you, or like, who is this asshole trying to tell us, like, bragging about his Subway maneuver? Like, I don't give a shit. I want my food.
I got to tell you, Bisaglia, I love you, and you made a really good move. But if all of a sudden I got that message like, hey, listen to what I did, I would probably cut their tip in half. I would go the other way.
Exactly. Yeah. Right, exactly. You're screwed. The overcompensating Uber Eats driver. Picked up from a Jersey Mike's sandwich shop. And the issue with this was when I was leaving this place, you could not make a left turn. You could only go right, and I had to go left to get to the said person's house. So I made a U-turn in a gas station. And when I got into the gas station, the employee got up because in New Jersey, you can pump your own gas. And he goes over to try to come to my car. And then obviously I zip by him and get out of that gas station. But I had to wait about a minute before I could make the turn because of oncoming traffic. This guy, though, got up, got behind me and stared at my license plate. Do you think he took my plate numbers down to report that I went through a gas station and used it as a way to make a turn, which was not allowed? Or do you think he was intimidating me?
Well, there's a lot of things here. First of all, let's say he was reporting you. Let's say he was ticked off that you used the gas, and we've all done this, by the way.
Of course.
We've all used the gas station to make a turn. What I normally do, and I do this around City Field a lot because you're not allowed to make a U-turn at one intersection, and so I make a left into the gas station and come around, so it acts as a U-turn. What I do, even though no one can hear me, is when I pull into the gas station, I say out loud, I really need to get gas. And then I say out loud, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm going to get it later. And so for my own mind, I really didn't do anything wrong. I was thinking about getting the gas. I changed my mind. What's funny about the whole thing is no one can hear me. Okay. It's not like there's a police officer out there hearing me. So I think just for future reference, you should do that. It'll make yourself feel better. But second of all, I was going to say, if this person was that pissed that you made an illegal gas station maneuver and they write your license down, what are they doing with it? I mean, seriously, they're going to call up the police and say, hey, I'd like to report a car that used a gas station to make an illegal turn. The officers will laugh at that person and say, really? You think we're going to take time out of our day to track down a car that we didn't even see? Okay, we weren't there. We don't know if this actually happened. You could just be some bitter douche. So even if you're being reported, to who?
Yeah, no, I get that. But I'm guessing when you leave this intersection because you can't make left turns, that this drives people utterly insane. So they're probably using this gas station all the time for this illegal turn. So maybe because this gas station is just a hot spot for illegal turning, that they've mandated a protocol in there. Or maybe he just wanted to intimidate me. I guess that's always a factor too. Yeah. Can I ask you, when you do, should I then maybe when I pull this maneuver, roll down the window and just yell out, all righty, I think I want to get gas. Hey, you know what? I have a quarter tank. I can hang on. Should I be rolling down my window and doing this?
Yeah, I think you should. You should. Then it shows that you're actually up thinking about doing it. Sometimes I'll even stop the car. Like I'll get to the pump, I'll stop, pause for a few seconds, and then say, all right, let's go. I think it makes me feel better. It makes me, I'm not trying to confuse anybody because no one's watching me, I don't think. And I guess an officer would watch, but it's really for my own mental sake that I'm thinking to myself, hey, I'm thinking of getting gas. Oh, wait, I'm not getting gas. I'm going to leave. Because ask yourself this, is there really anything wrong with that? And the answer would be no.
No.
You're allowed to flip-flop in life. It's okay.
That's fair. All right. So bottom line, you don't think, let's just end this story right here. You don't think I was reported?
No, I think he was pissed off, like you said, and was using his stare to intimidate you.
I got an email to my Gmail account a couple hours into deliveries saying somebody did not get their food properly and I left it in the incorrect spot. Now, with COVID-19 that's been going on, there's a lot of contactless delivery now where you can leave the food in a spot and then take a photo of it, as I referenced earlier in this episode. That photo then goes to the person and they know to come down and pick up the food. So with that in mind, when I got a note that the food was dropped off in the incorrect place, do you think it's on the person for not giving good instructions of where the food is left? Or do you think maybe I went to the wrong house and potentially left it in the wrong spot? What's your gut reaction to that?
I put it on the person because I think it's their job. It's on them. They place the order to really help you get to the right place. And that means being as descriptive as possible, giving you the most information as possible. So I kind of put it on the person. It's their responsibility. They're the one investing their money in going on this app and getting food. They're the ones that are hungry. So I lean towards putting it on them.
And let me give you some more details on this delivery. So it was inside an apartment complex, and they're the first door you could open. But the second door, you needed like a key fob or you needed to get buzz in. So when I got in there, I went through the first door as they instructed and then left it on the top of the staircase. My only thoughts maybe is I left them like on a dirty spot where there was some kind of like dust or filth on the floor, and maybe they got so pissed off that they were like, I'm going to report this guy for leaving it on some nasty area of the floor.
But look, they're the ones that wanted you to leave it there. I mean,
Yeah, that's true.
What do they think? Like everything is super clean? I mean, the odds are it's going to be dirty. If they did that, they're in the wrong, and they're just being crybabies.
Evan, thank you for joining the Mike Delivers podcast and letting me share my stories from the road.
It's been an absolute honor.
Evan makes a great point when he talks about the fact that if I start messaging the customers and telling them the great customer service I put forth, they probably don't care. And then they could be like, is this guy lying to try to make more money? I mean, you're kind of just shit out of luck. So I did the right thing. I made the cookie switch, but in the long run, will it really matter? I don't know. It was a fun story from the road, so at least I got that going for me. Again, thank you, Evan Roberts, for coming on the Mike Delivers podcast. Okay, the food that just smelled the absolute worst this week, and it is, it's amazing just how nasty and smelly one item can get in your car. Now, I do want to say, my wife had a good idea, like, is there an item that you put in the car that smells good? That probably does happen more often than the bad version, but it's just like when it's bad, you really, really, really remember the smell. So, okay, the smelliest food this week that I delivered while doing Uber Eats was the New Orleans chicken pasta from a local diner in New Jersey. That thing smelled so bad, so putrid. It's in this New Orleans cream sauce. I looked it up. With some Parmesan cheese and fried chicken cutlets, and the smell was just putrid. And the whole car stunk like this New Orleans gimmick chicken. It was completely and utterly nasty. I guess I could bring back places I peed on the road. There was one restaurant I got to pee at in this week, and that was fantastic. It was very nice of them to open that up, because most of the restaurants now, they don't let you go into the bathroom. So that's been annoying, and it's been a challenge. But there was one place that was good to me like that, so I want to give a shout out. Of course, I don't have the name in front of me. I'll get that for next week. Okay, really cool to mention. Next, this Thursday coming up, episode 106, the end of breakfast month. It's the place we go to is called First Watch, and there's a really important story in my life with my wife to that restaurant, so I think you'll get a kick out of that in episode 106 that's coming up later on in the week. Also on the next episode on Thursday, Jess and I will reveal what we're doing for the month of September and what that food will be, what the theme is. I think you guys will like it. If you listen to some of my other podcasts, like Outside the Box with Mike and Leon, hint, hint, you can get inside information on what that is. Now, I say this, and I mean it, at the end of every episode, if I have some comments that were left to me on the Apple Podcast section, I will sing them. So don't forget, leave a comment, and I will sing it. If you haven't left a rating as well, please do that. So this one comes from Mike Bearcat. He says, hilarious, 5 stars, very entertaining, just silly, innocent fun, highly recommend. Why is it when I sing comments, I think I sound like the guys from Creed or Nickelback? Like I get into a Nickelback vibe. Has anybody else noticed that but me? Maybe this is the first time I've recognized that. I become Mike from Nickelback. It's like, can I deliver your potatoes? Some are mashed, and please tip me at the door. I don't know where that came from, but I could be an original songwriter for Uber Eats talking about foods that I deliver. Maybe that'll be a spin-off to the Mike Delivers podcast, the Mike Delivers soundtrack, where he's singing about the food he delivers. Nah, I won't bore people with that. All right, this has been the Mike Delivers podcast, episode 105. Episode 106 drops on Thursday. First watch, end of breakfast, the gimmick breakfast platter, and I eat some eggs, okay? I did it. I ate eggs. The music you hear, that is from The Beautiful Noise. This podcast would not be the same without them. They are the soundtrack to this pod, and I'm highly appreciative of all of the great work that Beautiful Noise has done for the Mike Delivers podcast. Don't forget, again, head over to Mike Delivers on Patreon. Also, theprosclub.com, my podcast network that I co-created with Anthony Pierno. You can check out some other great content on there, like Bad Weather Fans and Real Talk Basketball. Episode 106 comes out on Thursday. A little more gimmick eggs is coming your way, people. This has been episode 105. We'll see y'all next time for the episode I just said beforehand, which I should have said after, but I kind of got a little mixed up and out of order, but I'll say it again, episode 106.